Hello tanks and tankettes, and welcome to the first tanks replay of 2018. This isn't, however, going to be a particularly flashy game, and it's not really a game that features any new tanks either. It does, however, feature a tank that leads to some new tanks. This is the Tier 7 French Heavy, the AMX M4 49, and this here is Bezelli 575 driving it. Now, I say it's not going to be a flashy game because you can't really have a flashy game in this. It is probably one of the weakest tier 9 heavies there. Definitely not a tier 9 heavy. One of the weakest tier 7 heavies overall, and that's for a number of reasons. Now, it does, at least like other French heavies, have an interesting choice of guns available, and Bezelli here is using the long 90mm DCA 45 cannon, but they've all got their own drawbacks, at least theoretically. So, I mean, overall, generally speaking, it's a bad Tiger, and there's kind of a reason for that. A lot of the French post-war designs were heavily influenced by tanks like the Tiger, and particularly, I believe, the Panther as well. So if this looks a little bit Panther-ish, that'll be why. In terms of the gun selection, well, you've got this long 90mm, which has the best penetration of any Tier 7 heavy, but it comes at the cost of a pretty terrible DPM. Although, having said that, the T29's DPM is only just better, but the T29 is overall a far better machine. You've also got a short 90mm, the F3, which has 170 average pen, which is still, you know, that's still usable at Tier 7 on a heavy tank. But it's got far better gun handling and, crucially, much better DPM. And then, of course, you have the 105mm, which is a little bit infamous because it is one of the few guns in-game where the premium ammo not only gives you more penetration, but more damage as well. However, it is the worst handling gun of the lot. So, yeah, you get terrible gun handling either way, but the F3 is at least kind of passable, and if you're willing to use a lot of premium ammo when you're bottom tier with the F3, then it's more than doable. This gun, you don't really ever need to reach for the premium ammo, but the DPM isn't very good, and although it does have good gun depression, like the T29, it does not have good turret armor to go with it. So you can really only expect to bounce things like that, the T150, and even then that was probably a gun mantlet bounce. And even then there's only a couple of areas of the gun mantlet that will bounce. Most of the turret face is only about, what, 110mm effective? If you clip the side of the turret, it's basically a ricochet angle, but yeah, the front of the turret on this is not bouncy at all. So this is not a terrible position, Bezelli, is it? He's just using his gun depression and pulling back, and he's aided by the fact that there's not really anything scary here that he's facing. This is mostly enemy tier 6s and tier 7s, because there's only a couple of tier 8s per team. In fact, of the enemy tier 8s, well, one of them's an artillery, and the other two are all the way over on the 1-2 line. So this is actually quite a comfortable situation for this tank, relatively speaking. So they've done enough damage now that he's clearly feeling a little more emboldened, and actually manages to get a shot on that pesky E25 that's been causing the T29 such troubles, but then does take a hit himself from that T150. And that's the thing with the armor on this, you know, even when you're top tier, the armor's not really going to work very well. Most tier 5s don't have any difficulties whatsoever punching through the armor, let alone tier 6s. So I think I'm right in saying he pretty much only has the one bounce in this from that T150, which probably was on the gun mantlet. So yeah, using the gun depression and keeping below where people can actually shoot back at you and just popping up and taking the shots is probably the best way you can play this. And he is helped by the fact that he's using the food premium consumable, so he is getting that extra bonus to his crew. I don't know if he was grinding for the new French heavies, by the way. I'm guessing yes, because that's pretty much the only reason you'd play this, is to grind through to the higher tiers. I don't think many people will have kept it to play just for fun. So a very lucky snapshot there. I say lucky just considering the handling of this gun overall. But yeah, he's clearly feeling like, well, he's got enough hit points and there are a few enough enemies left on this flank now that he can just go for it. He could even have rammed that that T150 there, although maybe he didn't want to take the damage. And that just leaves the E25, who is currently lodged up the rectum of that Lorraine 40T, but he's not going to last too much longer, even if he's managed to bite a decent chunk of health out of said 40T. So, the enemy team are capping. Most of the enemy team is dead, most of their team is dead, but yeah, they are going to have to do something about that. Now, you'd think the 112 that's been sat up in A90 for most of this game would then go towards the cap, but instead he's coming to the hill, leaving that SU-100 all alone. Meanwhile, the IS-3 is firing at the SU-100, and even though it's a stock IS-3, or you can see it is from the turret anyway, he's still, you know, a tier 8 heavy facing a tier 6 tank destroyer. So it's, you know, Bazelli's going to get some side shots here, but it's not going to immediately threaten the IS-3. Now, this is all at the expense of resetting the cap, and this is around about the time where I was thinking Bazelli, reset Bazelli. Reset the cap, Bazelli. The cap, Bazelli. They're about to cap, and he does, at this point, finally take notice, and unfortunately, completely wafts the shot. But he's going to have just enough time to fire again, and the Super Pershing very nicely turns his turret. So, yeah, Bazelli almost, you know, he saved the day, but he almost didn't save the day there. He got a bit distracted firing at that IS-3. And this is all now giving their team time to cap, basically. But yeah, you see what I mean about this not really being a flashy or necessarily exciting game. But it is still probably about as good as you're going to manage to do in an AMX M4. Because he's gotten nearly 4,000 damage. Which with this gun, with this DPM, is not bad. You know, this is the one argument for using that 90mm. You're trading DPM for reliability of penetration. And most of the shots that connected did pen, although that last one at the Super Pershing did not. Because, you know, he was shooting at he should have been shooting at the top of the turret there, basically. But anyway, never mind. You could have had a little bit more damage out of that, but as it was, still nearly 4,000 damage done is not half bad. So that was an ace tanker with a high caliber and a defender medal, and as I say, you know, he saved the day, but he also nearly didn't save the day. He almost essentially nearly cost them the match. There's quite a disparity between the top of the team and the bottom of the team in the team list, but that's true for both teams. On the enemy team, it's the E25 and the Super Pershing that were really carrying their weight. That stock IS-3 didn't even manage 1,000 damage. The 112 on their team did even less. Actually, no, they did do a bit more than that, but they were sniping it, weren't they? Yes, they did like 1,500. But nonetheless, you know, they then made the inexplicable decision of, instead of going back to cap, coming to the hill, because reasons. So, that's the AMX M4. Still not particularly a good tank. Yeah, hopefully someday Wargaming will give it a little bit of love, but for the moment it sits in a really awkward place. It is a second line heavy tank. And generally speaking, you want to be doing that. You want to be playing peekaboo with people to get around the fact that your DPM is pretty damn bad. And if you're willing to, of course, you can just use the F3 and shoot all premium ammo, but that's going to be a rather more expensive way to play it. So hopefully you enjoyed this replay, and if you did, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can sub to my channel if you haven't already, and as always, stay tuned for more.